Okay, this video is going to be talking about how to generate a purchase and sale agreement as an acquisitions person. This is your primary job, is to get properties under contract. And we'll be going over that purchase and sale agreement so you understand different things in it, and you'll be able to understand why we say certain things when we talk to sellers, to be able to explain to them what's in this purchase and sale agreement, because those are going to be some objections that you see. So let's pretend that this person, we've agreed to buy this house for, let's say, $15,000 or whatever it might be. The acquisitions section needs to be all filled out, comps and whatnot, repairs done to the property, what you think that the estimated cost is going to be to repair it for a flip, and what you think is going to be for a rent rehab. Underneath here, you'll see all these other sections. You'll then begin to get into what's called the document generator, or purchase and sale agreement. Now, anything that's in this section is what's going to get populated on the agreement. It's really pretty savvy so that you don't have to continue, because sometimes contracts, we'll say, hey, the acceptance date is Tuesday, but they couldn't get to it, and we have to change it to Wednesday. So instead of drawing up a whole new contract, we can just change it here, generate it, and then get it sent off to them. So purchase and sale agreement. Yes, we're going to be using a purchase and sale agreement here. When are we offering this? This is when we put the date, right? Say we're offering it on Monday. The buyer name. Now this is important because we acquire property in different names and then assign them almost all the time. So we want to put in that particular company that's going to be acquiring it at that particular time. In this case is going to be RA Capital. Purchase price, we said, is going to be $15,000. Now remember to put the periods and the zeros at the end of there. Who's going to be so you'll see this three sections. It says PSA, which means purchase and sale agreement. A is for acquisitions. Split closing costs. Seller pays closing costs, or the buyer pays closing costs. Most of the time, it's us, the buyer, paying closing costs. In order for you to generate this document, all you got to do is hit the X if we're the ones closing it. If not, remove it and have somebody else. If the seller is going to pay the closing costs, that's where you'd put it. But generally speaking, we are the ones paying the closing costs, so we put the X there. Now, when you are negotiating, if the property is occupied, we need to know by whom and what the rent is, what the rent amount is. Let's say it's $700. This is where we put it, right there. Okay. We want to make sure that we're getting prorated when we close for any rent that's due. Okay, that's rent that's already been paid for that month. Same thing with the security deposit. Find out if they gave a security deposit. Let's say this is a $500 security deposit. If they did a security deposit, we get credit for that, so we want to account for it at closing. This is an inspection day period. Typically we do 10 days. Sometimes we'll say, we need 15 days, but it'll be 10 business days, so it's basically 2 weeks to do an inspection. That's typically. This is how you negotiate. Figure out what it is that the seller's willing to give you and take it. When we're supposed to close this, now obviously if we're on the 2nd, we tell people that we want to close as soon as possible. We can pay cash and all that kind of stuff, but that sometimes there are title issues that come up, and it takes a little time to clear those up. Sometimes there's a judgment or a lien that needs to get cleared up, and we just don't know. So instead of continuing to do different kind of closings, different kind of purchase and sale agreements, and then amending and extending our dates, I just like to have a long close date so that we can actually do the thing. Okay. So in this particular case, let's say we got it under contract on October 2nd. What I like to do is go to Friday and then count 3 Fridays. So 1, 2, 3. I would say that we'd try to close this thing maybe the 27th, 20th or 27th, depending on what the seller's most comfortable with. You just tell them what you want to do. But we like to set our closings on Fridays, so that gives us all week, and I have found that for whatever reason in the real estate world, people care about getting things closed on Fridays. Why? Makes no sense to me, but makes sense to everybody else. We choose the title company, put it right there. If there's anything additional, like for instance, we said that we're going to let them stay in the house for 5 days after we close, or the tenant is in foreclosure. Not the tenant is in foreclosure, but that we know that it's in foreclosure, or that they are being represented by a realtor. This is kind of where we would put that. Most of the time, if there's nothing there, we absolutely want to put NA so that we don't have any of those problems. And then we have the acceptance date. This is when they have time to accept it by. So we're offering it on October 2nd, but maybe we're going to give them until the 3rd to accept it. Okay, that's reasonable. But we want to have short acceptance so that we're not wasting our time and we're not sitting there paralyzed. Once you have this all done, all we do is come up here and save the lead. Okay? And then what we do is we go to the 3 dots, generate document, and you'll notice that there's a bunch of documents that can get generated here. The one that we're looking for as an acquisitions person is the purchase and sale agreement when we're buying. Okay? There's a purchase and sale agreement when we're selling. Okay? We've generated these agreements so that they're more advantageous to us depending on what we're doing, whether we're buying or we're selling. So in this case, we want to be doing the buying. Okay? Click next steps, and you'll see that all of this stuff needs to be cleared out. Now, there's one thing I'm noticing is an issue. It looks like on the lead we didn't have the county, so I'm actually going to go back to the lead and put in the county. There we go. Where do you put that in is right here. County is Shelby. Save. Go back, generate document. Purchase, sell, buying. Over. Okay. Now it's all filled out. You can kind of see everything that's filled out. Closing costs, of course, those two aren't going to be there because we're not splitting it, and the seller's not paying for the closing costs. We're going to be doing it. Everything else looks like it's been filled out. Good. Now we hit next. Okay. And now we have generated the whole document. Now occasionally you'll see where maybe the name is maybe something's a little off, it's not quite right. You can always come in here and grab it and put it where it needs to go. Okay? You can change the font. There's a bunch of different things that you can do here. So sometimes it populates a little funky. Maybe the X is over too much. Whatever, but this one actually looks pretty good. You just want to check it, just spot check it. Don't spend a ton of time on it because it's going to be pretty close. And then we hit complete, the top right here. Now, what it does is it begins to generate the agreement. Now, it can take some time, and while you're waiting, you can kind of just click off and it'll keep doing it without it. But when it is available, this is what it looks like. Boom. Okay? That's our purchase and sale agreement right there. Now I want to go over this with you so you understand. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that we can so you can see the clauses here. I think that's enough. I'll do one more. Okay, so there's enough. There it is. So on the purchase sale agreement, it is it's made on this day between the Kelly, Latasha, and Lawrence Jr., known as seller, RA Capital, known as buyer. Now you'll notice that it says on our side and or assigns, because every contract that we get, we will be assigning to something. Now, sellers may have an issue with this. They may say, who are you assigning this to? Okay. Our answer, and the standard answer that you need to come up with, is that we don't really know exactly which entity we want this to be held in. It could be one of our partners wants to hold it in a different holding entity. It could be that we have a different strategy, and because of our IRS, we want to always blame the bureaucrats, we want to blame the third party. Because the IRS requires that certain entities function certain ways and therefore get taxed differently, we want to be able to have the ability to assign it to which property or to which company that we want. Same thing happens, and to which partner that we want. We may have a partner that wants to take this down himself. We may have a partner that's partnering with two other partners. We don't know exactly what's going on with this. Additionally, though we get it under contract right now, it can be several weeks before we actually close. Now, this is going to be of no fault of ours. We take that money, set it aside, and we're ready to close. We always close. We never not close, is what I tell sellers. But sometimes title delays and sometimes things happen, and I can't tell what the future is going to be like, and I would much rather just have the ability to assign it to a different entity and not have to bother you, Mr. Seller, when I do sell this, when I do assign this house. But I don't know what the future is going to be like 2 weeks from now, and I don't know which company is going to have funds. And to have the ability to assign it to the real company that I want, and I can tell you, Mr. Seller, RA Capital is actually not going to be the one who takes title to this property. It's going to be something else, okay? Because I don't know where I'm going to be putting it. That's one of the ways I've gotten around the whole assignment. Now, most sellers have never had a problem with this assignment. I've never had any issues because of the way I've been able to explain what's going on there. For invaluable, $10, right, and other goods and valuable considerations. So in order to make this a legal binding contract, we put $10. Now, we're not going to put $10 down as earnest money or a deposit. In fact, we rarely put any deposit down whatsoever. Now, sellers will ask that. Why aren't you putting down a deposit? Well, the answer is, because we close so fast that by the time we're supposed to submit a deposit anyway, we're going to be closing, right? We want to make it so that we're not tying up any of our money, and if we are, we're able to get it right back. Now, we don't like to put down earnest money, but if a deal's good enough, we will put down earnest money and a deposit. Now that deposit will be refundable, and you'll see a bunch of ways that we can kind of get out of this agreement if we need to, but that's kind of how that works. This next one is just the address of the property, the county, and whatnot. The sales price, right? The buyer / assigner. Remember, through the rest of this, we're going to be talking about the assignment. Oh, I wanted to show you this bold part. The legal description shall be provided by closing agent at closing. There's no reason for us to go try to get the legal description on every single thing. Let's let that up to the title company. We've never had a problem not closing because it didn't have the exact legal description on the purchase and sale agreement. Never. Buying it for $15,000, right of entry. We've got the right to send people in there. In fact, we've got a lot of people that can walk through this property. Assigner buyers, employees, agents, contractors, inspectors, clients, and assignees shall be entitled to enter the property for this hour walkthrough and inspections. That's how we're able to get potential buyers in before we close the property, is to be able to say, hey, they've got the access, they've got the ability to go look at this property and see if it's something that they want. There's the X I was talking about, that we're going to be paying all the closing costs, recording costs, title insurance, etc. Simply put, that's a net. That $15,000 is a net number to them. However, it does not involve the prorations, because on the prorated, property taxes, rent, utilities, if necessary, shall be prorated to the date of closing. Additionally, seller agrees to submit buyer all security deposits if applicable. Simply put, he's going to prorate the rent, the taxes, and give us the earnest or the security deposit that he collected from his tenant, even if that person has not been paying and whatnot. That way we can handle it when that tenant moves. Now, sometimes people have an issue with the security deposit. Sellers think that security deposit is their money. It's not their money. It's the tenant's money. And when the tenant moves out, we, as the new owners, are obligated to accept the tenant with the already existing lease. So all the things bound by the lease, we are now accepting. So as an acquisition person, you need to get a copy of the lease so that we know what we're getting into if we're buying this property, if we're buying a property that's occupied with a tenant. Okay, and so to explain to the seller, listen, that's not your money, it's not my money, it's the tenant's money. And if you want to get in trouble with some fair housing, remember, we always blame the bureaucrats. We always blame somebody else. If you want to get in trouble with fair housing, go ahead and keep that security deposit. But when that tenant moves out, I'm going to have them knocking on your door because they're not coming my way. In fact, I'm going to need for you to sign something that says that you're keeping their security deposit, that you're not giving it to me, and then when the tenant moves out, they need to come to you, and you got to prove to them that you're going to give them the whole money back, and that you're not going to hold anything back because you don't own the property, you're not going to have access to it, and you're not going to be able to do your walkthrough. You can see all of these reasons why it makes no sense for him to fight over the security deposit. Blame the bureaucrats. Assignment. The agreement may be assigned by buyer and assigner without the consent of seller and shall be binding on the heirs and assigns for the parties hereto. It's clear and blue. We can assign it without consent to the seller. And how we explain that is, Mr. Seller, we don't want to bother you. We don't want to bother you having to sign this and getting a new purchase and sale agreement. We'll just handle it. We're trying to make this transaction as simple as possible. This is only a 2-page agreement. You can read it and understand everything. Inspection, we've got 10 business days to walk through and see. If not, we can cancel the contract. That's one way we can get out, is the inspection in 10 days. No broker or agents. We're not being represented by an agent. Neither are you. And if you are, you got to pay them. We're not going to pay them. All expenses are going to be paid outside of the closing. 8, equitable interest. This is important for us to know. Now, it's funny, though this is a big deal, most people have no problem with it. Seller grants a buyer / assigner equitable interest in the above referenced property, giving the buyer assigner the right to market the property for sale. If they look at that, say, yeah, Mr. Seller, I told you from the very beginning, my aim is to sell this property. And so I'm not living in it. I'm going to go and sell the property if I can. Further, if any language in this agreement is deemed by any governmental jurisdiction to prevent buyer agent's right to obtain equitable interest in the subject property, seller shall assist the buyer in perfecting the language of this agreement through addendum in order to comply with the state law so that equitable interest in the property is legally conveyed. Since we're not, we have no interest in being, a realtor for them. We want to act as principals in this transaction, and that's precisely what we're doing. Again, buyer's assignment. A buyer assigner's sole intent is to assign this agreement to an assignee. That's why we're involved in this. We want to assign it, and that spells it out pretty clearly right there. Clear and marketable title. Said property is to be sold free and clear of an encumbrances except noted in this agreement, and you're going to give us full possession of it when we close. Now there's one part on here that's been crossed out, you'll notice. It was just kind of a contradiction thing, and if anybody has an issue, all you got to say is, well, it kind of doesn't make sense. You're going to sell us without any liens or judgments on this, right, Mr. Seller? Yeah, okay, well then we'll just do it that way. Time is of the essence. They need to do this right away. Closing is going to be on this date at this company, or we can determine where we're going to be. The buyer can determine where they're going to be, okay, where the closing is going to be. Counterparts we can add to this thing. Radon and lead base, that's just part of it. Sometimes people do have a problem with this. All we're saying is that we've got the right to test for it at our cost. What we're not saying is that they need that there is that there, and we can again blame the bureaucrats. See, Mr. Seller, we've got to do a lead-based paint disclosure so that we can do this thing legally. Well, you're telling us that there may be lead-based paint and radon there. So, partner approval. Now, this is one of the ways that we can kind of get out of this stuff. A partner approval of a buyer and a signer, if necessary, is required for full execution of this agreement. It's basically saying that partner has to approve on this whole thing, or we're kind of out of the deal. Our partners, we have a bunch of different partners, whoever they are. Possession, right away, liquid damages. The only thing they can come after is a deposit. Now, how much did we put down on this deposit? Someone might be able to argue $10, but most of the time we'll put down a deposit. Government law will be this, and this is where we sign. Notice that they kind of have the information popping up right there. That's where we're able to sign. Now, once you have this agreement, you need to go to another. Right now we're using DocuSign. We've used HelloSign. We'll use whatever digital signing things that are there. Let me log into it real quick. Well, it's being weird on me. Log in. I don't even know if I have the right. Yeah, I didn't think I did. So once you have the purchase sale agreement generated, you need to log into. Right now we're using DocuSign. You just log into that, and hopefully this will work. And there we go. So this is what this particular one looks like, DocuSign. They're all pretty similar. In this particular case, you're going to say send an envelope. And you can't really see that. Let me see if I can move this over a little bit. Yeah. You're going to upload the document. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. Okay. You can go back over to that purchase and sale agreement that we were using before, and you're going to need to download it to your browser, download it to your computer. So this is the easiest way I found on Chrome to just to download it. So it's going to get downloaded. Once you get back over to this upload area, I'm going to go find what you just downloaded. Okay. And it's going to upload right here. And you can do one of two things. I like to hit set signing order so that I can make sure that it's going out to where it needs to go. So there's me. And then I would add a recipient. Of course, this is going to be the seller. So let's, I just sold a deal to a guy named Jose. Maybe it'll populate. Yeah. So he'll be the second signer on this thing. Now you see this bottom part. You may not be able to see it. I'll bring it over here. You see this bottom part. This is where you can write a message. Say, hey, this is going to be the body of an email. Hey, Jose, here's the agreement. Please sign when you can, right? I don't know why I put H in there. Please sign when you can. So, something along those lines. In fact, it really should be, give me a call if you have any questions, and then put your number right there. And I don't know how to spell questions. Questions. There we go. Now on here, this is the subject line. So you may want to say, make it look a little bit nicer. Purchase agreement. And this is for whatever, Main Street. I don't even know what the name of this thing is. Okay. And then on here, you're going to hit this button. This is a little awkward. Hit next. And actually, maybe I should just bring this. Yeah, let me bring this over. So you can kind of get a good feel for it. There we go. Now it's fitting. So on this agreement, you're going to have, this is just like it was when we generated. This is the exact same agreement. Goes 2 pages right there. What we need to do is make sure that each participant is initialing each page and signing. And so this is how it works. Over here is Brad in the yellow, and Jose is the blue. Okay? So Brad needs to initial. We scroll up. Just initial right here at the bottom. That means, yep, this is what I'm looking for. Then you can have Brad or yourself sign right there. We also want to have the date. You just click it and you drag it over there. The date that they sign right there. Now you do the same thing for Jose. Jose needs to initial. Jose needs to sign. And I have found that if you can, oh, I've got it in the wrong place. Let's bring that up there, because there's, usually it would be, you'd have Kelly here, but because I got Jose. That line is a good indicator of where the line needs to be. And then the last thing you do is you just hit send. Okay? And in my case, if I hit send, since I was the first one to sign, it'll give me this pop-up that says, do I want to sign right now or do I want to sign later? Let's hit sign right now so you understand what the seller is actually getting. He's going to get something that looks just like this. Hey, can you sign this agreement? Hey, Jose. You know, he's getting this message. But it says continue. And he'll have the opportunity at this point, this is how he'll be able to look at it, he'll be able to view on his phone or on his computer the terms, you know, the agreement here. All you got to do is hit next, like as you go sign this. If he calls you up, I don't know how to sign this, just hit the next button and it'll tell you where to sign. Now you just click for your initials. Okay, now it may have him adopt his initials, or sometimes they'll give it this little default font. But then you can sign it. You know, all they do is click buttons that he's already given them permission to. There may be a pop-up that says, hey, give us a permission. Sometimes it'll say, actually do a real signature instead of a company signature. You're adopting whatever signature that you want, but that's how you handle it with these buyers. And then you hit finish. Now, if I were to hit finish here, it would then go to Jose, and Jose would be really confused because he's like, I don't even own this property. I'm not even this person, so I'm not going to do this. I'm actually going to delete that, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. But that's it. It's clicking buttons and hitting finish. Hit next and finish, and so now you know how to explain to these guys how to do it. Now I'm going to try to get out of this thing, and because I didn't hit finish, we're not actually finished. It's just there. So I go to my home. Oh, you can see it right there. Manage, unable to access the envelope. Yeah. There it is right there. All I'm going to do is click here and delete it. Boom. Now it's been deleted. Also, you can tell your sellers that they can download an app. I know HelloSign. I know DocuSign. There's an app that they can actually sign on their app on their phone. But that's how you get a contract sent out. Now, once it's signed, it'll show up right here. You're going to have to do another move. You're going to have to click on it. This is one that's been signed. You're going to have to download it. You can download it as a separate PDF or combined PDF. You're going to have to download that PDF. Once it's been signed, it'll be sitting there, because this is one, looks like we're buying it for $30,500. See the initials, see the signature, the date that they signed, all that kind of stuff. Now I've downloaded it to my computer, because what I have to do also is I've got to come up here and I want to attach this signed agreement back to the lead record. Okay? That way anybody in FreedomSoft can go in and see the signed contract. We want the signed contract, because right now the thing that's in there, let's view it, is just the unsigned contract. See what I mean? Now we got to go to the attachments and attach a file, and it's just like attaching, I just downloaded this. It's just like attaching anything to like attaching to an email, basically. But now what this does is, boom, it's now up there, and we kind of see, hey, this is a deal that we have under contract. Here's the purchase and sale agreement. It's signed, so we can send it off to the title company or send it to whoever we need to get this deal done. So to an assignee, if we're going to sell a deal, they're assigning that contract. They step into our place as the person on the contract. If we're the buyers, now they become the buyers. So in order for us to assign it to them, they have to be able to see what they're getting into. And we can't just send them an unsigned purchase and sale agreement. We've got to send them a fully executed purchase and sale agreement. And that's why we have to consistently upload all signed agreements back into FreedomSoft. So that's how we do this, and that's about it in how to deal with a purchase and sale agreement, getting it under contract, getting it signed, and how to process it on FreedomSoft. And remember, once you have that signed purchase and sale agreement, you've got to go back into the lead record and hit this thing, converted to properties. Because if it's not, that section won't be there, right? Boom, convert to properties, and then actually convert it to a property. Does that make sense? So that's it for this video. Hope that explains how to get those purchase and sale agreements signed and how to process them accordingly.